Well, hello everyone, and welcome to our DASA Deep Dive webinar. Again, welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Deborah Burton, and I am the Marketing Manager for the DevOps Agile Skills Association, or as we like to call her, DASA, and it's my pleasure to have you here today. And I'm going to take this opportunity to introduce you to our guest speaker, and that's Frederick Shucken. He's the managing consultant at Quint Wellington and Redwood. I would also let you know that he's a member of our DASA editorial board and key to the development of our DASA portfolio. So I just want to welcome you, Frederick, and thank you for being here today.
Okay, thank you.
So I'm going to turn the presentation over to you now.
Okay, thank you, Deborah, and welcome everybody to this webinar. Well, what we are going to talk about today is the first principle of the 6 principles we use at DASA and at Quint to define DevOps. I mean, if you look at DevOps, many definitions exist. Many of them quite adequately explain DevOps or one or more aspects within DevOps. We used to sum it up with 6 principles. And today we are very much focused on principle 1. It's customer-centric action. Let me see if I can move the slide. Yes. So it's DevOps principle 1, customer-centric action. And within that, we also talk a lot about courage, having the guts to act, and things like innovation and experimentation. And if you look at IT nowadays, I mean, what I see from my perspective, working with many customers and IT organizations, is that, well, many embrace elements within DevOps as the sort of central elements in a new modus operandi for delivering IT services. And these companies usually start with small parts within their IT organization and their business, and fundamentally try to redesign the way they operate. And they say goodbye to traditional, well, demand supply models, traditional long overdue products, if you will, centralized IT, complex value stream, excessive handovers, waste, and having lots of incidents and problems creep up on a daily basis. And to us, and to me, that, well, the maybe old traditional way of working isn't sufficient if you look at today's world. Well, in today's world, I mean, stuff is changing. We've got this digital transformation going on, rapidly speeding up changes within businesses, and well, basically, organizations need to be able to respond. And DevOps is a way of really helping organizations embrace that capability to react to changes. But that's not easy. And doing stuff like that, whether it be in a DevOps way or not, it requires courage. You need the guts to act in a quickly responsive manner, maybe act even as a lean startup, and being able and learn to innovate on a continuous basis, if you will. And those companies that succeed, they do not shy away from pivoting their strategy or parts of the strategy when they found out it's not longer working. And they constantly need to invest in improving products, services, in new stuff. And in the end, a central element is, of course, maximizing the value to your customers and delighting your customers in the best way you can possibly do. So the element of the client, the customer, and providing value is central in all that we should be seeing when we go to this new way of working that we define and talk about under the label of DevOps. And today we're really going to be talking about this first principle. It's about innovation, experimentation, and courage. So, DevOps principle number 1, customer-centric action. It's about surviving the digital disruption for you and your colleagues in an organization as a business. And it basically means that you need to improve and speed up your capabilities of understanding your customers. And customer-centric action means, and we sort of got inspired by the lean startup methodology made popular by Eric Ries. But it means creating very short feedback loops. And one way to do that is build MVPs, minimal viable products, and change your strategy and your product and service portfolio when needed. It's like the Spotify CEO, Daniel Ek, once said. He said, well, he got a question, and the question is, why do you think that your company, Spotify, will succeed above the other participants in the marketplace? And he said, well, we at Spotify, we aim to make mistakes faster than anybody else. And what he, of course, was talking about is the courage to try new things, to experiment, to make mistakes, to learn from those mistakes, and to move on. So this whole quote in the minimal viable product is not about making mistakes, but it's much more about being and becoming a learning organization, and especially validated learning. And Spotify is a great example in this regard, because it's a fail-friendly environment. It's about failure recovery rather than failure avoidance. And some teams within Spotify even have a what they call a fail wall, and they're very proud of all the mistakes they made and the learnings they got from it. Well, and if I talk from my own experience and the teams I work with, they do not so much have a fail wall, but they've got their own rituals. One of the things I like is a team has at least once a week a fail cake. And somebody needs to make a big mistake, lots of learning, and to share, celebrate in the learning that came from doing the mistakes. They need to make a cake and share that with the whole team and all the stakeholders involved. And things like that, to me, are really sort of a proof that, yes, in such teams and organizations, they really have a fail-friendly culture. And in the end, it's about what Charles Darwin already said a long time ago. It's about being responsive to change. And that's not easy, but in the end, and in the next decades, that is what organizations, regardless of the industries they're in, they really need to develop the capability to adapt and survive. And doing DevOps is a great way to grow that capability. And the key element is understanding your customers and having a fail-friendly culture within your organization. So to survive this digital disruption age that's coming our wake, it means turning to concepts like the lean startup and a minimal viable product. Now, the minimal viable product, like I said, it's made popular by Eric Ries about 10 years ago. And is really a method of rapid development. And Ries, after that, started his own consultancy company and is using his startup methodology in large enterprises. And what he says is that problem for most existing organizations does not really, it's not the case that they don't have a lot of good ideas. They probably do. There are lots of smart people with lots of very good ideas and things that would like to improve and try out. He says it's more about those large, traditional, long-existing, successful organizations. They do not really have a process, a management process, if you will, to start up high-risk projects. And these projects can be very small, could be contained within one team. And he says the strategy of those established companies is that they really, when they grow and grow old and successful, they sort of kill the initial spirit of innovation that maybe was fundamental in the early years in actually starting up the company. And he says the whole governance and control element that's usually in place in those large organizations is really pressing down and killing all the systems of innovations that you need. So his sort of professional mission in life is speaking out against a situation where either time is wasted for not doing innovation, or time is even wasted on the wrong kind of innovations. And the wrong kinds of innovations are the ones where you're not really learning anything from what you're trying and what you're experimenting with. And if you look at the minimal viable product, then basically what that means is that you, as quickly as possible, put out a product to your customers which incorporates all the elements that are needed within the product, but in a very minimalistic way. So it's not starting at the bottom with the most bottom layer of all the things within your product, sort of a pear-shaped if you look at the picture, but you try to incorporate all the different layers, but in a minimalistic way. And to do that, and this is what we saw on the other slide, is that basically it's a process where you come up with, and let me go back to the former slide, and I'm moving in the other direction. There it is, on the left. It all starts, of course, with having an ID. And like I just said, all companies, all organizations have smart people with lots of good ideas. And then the trick is to subsequently build a minimal product and deploy that product or the code, if you will, as quickly as possible, and let it be accessed and used by your end user. And then the most important thing starts. You need to measure, you need to collect data, you need to be scientific about it so that you can learn and improve on your ID, and you build into the next iteration. And then of course you hopefully are able to steer your ID into not a minimal product, but in a fully fledged product that is really bringing value to your customers. And what I find within IT is that this minimal viable product stuff, if you read about it, it's very much about business products for end users. But I work with a lot of IT teams, and they have lots of ideas about improving their services, improving their way of working, improving the way they're organized. And you can use this minimal viable product way of doing stuff very good in those situations. It doesn't have to be an product for an end user. Even in small teams within IT, we should set up this process and make it happen. But that is difficult. And if you look at why it is difficult, then we of course need to speak about the personal leadership of the people involved. And what does it take from a leadership role within a team and an organization to turn this stuff on? Because what will happen is that we know where we are. We've got this ID, this vision to where we want to be, but we're not exactly sure on how to get there. So we've got this unclear territory within the middle that we need to navigate. But it's a hazy, misty affair in there. So probably we'll start doing things, we'll start experimenting, and we'll take one step forward, and then we'll take 2 steps back. And this normally kills, in my opinion, a lot of experimentation and a lot of good ideas, because it's difficult to lead and to trust your teams in doing this. And basically, if you look at the kata coaching methodology that came from, derived from the whole lean and Toyota way of working, and basically leaderships need to know how to deal with teams who go into this uncertain territory. The questions they should ask is, do you know where you are? What is the target condition? Where do you want to be? What obstacles do you think are in the middle? And do you have, when you identify or potentially identify an obstacle, how are you going to address it? What is your next step? What do you expect? When can we go and see what we have learned from taking the next step in that unclear territory? It's about fostering taking steps that requires guts, and it's about learning from the things that we did. But of course, we do need to know where we want to be. So basically, that means that we need a very good product vision. In my opinion, that means that we, in one way or the other, we need something like a product owner role. Because if you don't have this product owner role within the company, close to the team, then probably it's very difficult to set out the vision. Where do we want to go? So to me, this is one of the crucial aspects between success and failure in having good experiments, learning, and being able to innovate. And of course, the product owner role within IT is one that is heavily debated. We've got very good product owners, we've got very bad ones. It's a difficult role. But a good product owner is like Nick Ferrier a couple of years ago said, he or she should carry the dissonance between the target vision state, where we want to be, and where we are now, the current state. And I think that maybe the most crucial element for a product owner to me is being able to have this vision, to communicate this vision, and to know that how to get a team into motion and start exploring and learning to get there. And that is a difficult thing to do as a product owner, especially depending on the company, how many stakeholders you need to address, to communicate with. But in my opinion, the key question I always ask when I find someone in the product owner role, do you know where do you want to be? What is the target vision state that we should be going? And I did come across a lot of teams without a product owner, and that's always a very difficult thing to do. Team doesn't always know where to go. So if you take this minimal viable product stuff and you set it into motion, and basically you create a very quick and short feedback loops. And this is of course not anything new. It's part of the excellent 3 ways as described by Jim Kim. You should definitely read the Phoenix Project if you haven't already done so. And I'm not going to explain those 3 ways in detail. But in the end, if you go from the establishing flow between dev and ops and creating the second way with the feedback, then eventually those 2 enable this continual experimentation and learning that is so very much essential to doing DevOps and being able to innovate and create, to delight your customers and create value for your customers. But if you work in a team, and I see a lot of teams struggling with experimenting and innovation, and normally when we analyze these situations, there is always one central element that pops up. Basically, the absence of trust that is killing what should be done with experimentation and innovation. And there is this great study within Google about teams that are really successful. They've got lots of teams within Google, and they, a couple of years ago, a researcher did a study to scientifically come up with the differentiation between highly performing teams, high performing teams within Google, and teams that were not as good as those. And the one central element that came up with was high performing IT teams always have a very high element of trust among all team members. You are accepted for who you are, we trust each other, you can speak out, and that was the one thing that really enabled the team to fly. And that's of course nothing new. If you look to Patrick Lencioni and the way he looks at after his research about great teamwork, it's about building cohesive teams, and he says always, hey, it's difficult to do so, but it's not complicated. You need to address not only the top elements within the pyramid, those are the visible ones, the results, the accountability, but also the way the team deals with conflicts, the way the team speaks out its commitment to one another, and the way they trust each other. So essential for surviving the digital disruption and creating the value for customers is about having great teams. And if you do not have great teams that trust each other, that know how to deal with conflict, and that strive towards very ambitious results, and they hold each other mutually accountable, then it's very difficult to get in a state where we can actually uh, uh, have this customer-centric action. And what we mean with that is to experiment, to innovate, and to have the courage to do so. So in this open culture with these very cohesive, effective teams, there should be no hesitation. There should be no barriers to act, to experiment, to ask questions, and to take calculated risks. And calculated risk means knowing where you want to go, knowing which obstacles you might encounter, and trying to deal with them in a minimal viable product kind of process way with validated learning. It's not just doing stuff, it's about doing stuff and learning from what happens. And if you do so, then hopefully the bureaucracy will be less. There will be no fear. People will speak up. They will ask questions to learn. And basically, people are allowed and willing to take risk and innovate. And I think whatever you do within your DevOps initiatives, it might be automation. It might be that you build these cross-functional autonomous teams. It might be that you have these very short value streams, which you really try to get rid of all the waste and then speed things up. And maybe you went from 2 deliveries a year to 2 deliveries a day. But in the end, to get there and to keep going, the ability to innovate and experiment and learn is the key thing in DevOps. It's a difficult thing to do, but it's not very complicated, but it takes a lot of guts to get there. So I'm wishing you the very best of luck with continuing all the people who are already doing DevOps. I really hope this short webinar will help you with maybe even a bit more focus on the cultural side of things and the ways and the things you should change or incorporate within your company to foster this innovation bit. And if you're not starting doing DevOps, I think this element might just be the one that should be on the top of your list of things to be doing. I see it's 10:30 here in the Netherlands, so I think our time is up.
Yes, it is. And I do want to thank you for this session, Frederick, because that's one of the things around DevOps Principle 1, right? That customer-centric action, that courage to act and to innovate. And I think you covered those key points for our audience today. And I thank you for that. But I do want to ask one question that came in, and before we move a bit forward, is what is a practical way to stimulate experimentation and innovation?
Well, to me, the most practical way would be to free up time. For example, yesterday I was in a great company, a great IT team, but they were very busy. Always lots of incidents, lots of releases, lots of things to do, changing priorities. And these people were working shifts of more than 10 hours a day. So if you do that for the whole week, where is the time to experiment? When should people be doing that? So what I always try to do is to get rid of this resource efficiency with everybody having a completely covered shift, and maybe 2 shifts even. But say, if we've got the very best and brightest guy or girl in the organization, let's give this person work for 3 days. And the other 2 days, what was he going to do? I don't care. Experiment, learn, figure stuff out. Good things will happen. And that is, of course, a very practical way to really emphasize that you're serious about getting this experimentation to the next level.
Right, absolutely. I have a more of a comment, I think, here from the audience is trust is a big word. what can companies do to build a culture of trust? My experience is that it can be very difficult and sometimes nearly impossible.
Yeah, it's the proof of the eating is in the pudding with trust. You can talk about it all that you want, um, but you really need to show it. People need proof that you're serious when you're talking about trust. So when if you look at my last answer to the first question, if you say, well, Frederick, each Monday we'll make sure that you've got room to experiment, and we trust you with doing stuff that eventually will be very valuable to our company. Uh, and then after maybe 2 months, what will happen? Will I still have the trust, or will people say, well, that was a waste of time. We've given you lots of times, and we haven't done anything yet is valuable. If something like that will happen, then the whole trust is back to where you started. So it's not trust is not something to talk about a lot. It's about something you need to show to people, and that's not really that difficult. Uh, uh, but of course, there are always very good reasons to not do so. Um, so that's why it's difficult but not complicated. Proof of the pudding is in the eating.
Right, absolutely. And one final question that we had to do with whether or not you could list some resources or frameworks that would be available to help drive cultural change.
Oh, that's good, but that is a difficult question.
Yeah.
Because cultural change, one of the very difficult things to achieve. So what I always use is Patrick Lencioni, because I really believe in the focus on teams nowadays, and I think we'll really move towards that direction. Teams within an organization are sort of the central element that binds everything together. And I always use Patrick Lencioni's book, The Dysfunctional 5 Dysfunctionals of Effective Teams, as the basis to work with improving the way teams operate. Um, that would be my short answer. I
Okay.
usually don't have a fixed thing that I use as a cultural change. It always depends on what kind of situation, what kind of organization, what kind of people I'm dealing with.
Okay.
I'm allowed to deal with.
I'd like to thank each of you for taking the time to join Frederick and I today. Frederick, I'd like to thank you. It's always a pleasure to have an opportunity to do these types of sessions with you. So thank you so much for your expertise and for your passion. So everyone, again, thank you so much. Sorry we ran over time a bit, and I hope to see you soon at a next upcoming DASA webinar. Thanks, everyone. Bye for now. Have a wonderful day.